Hello.
Awesome, thank you. We are excited, the audience is excited. And so before we even get started, I have a housekeeping question that we need to kind of put out there. After we do our thing talking, we're gonna open it up for our friends to come to the mic and ask questions. And so we need to know, can we call you auntie?
Oh.
Can we call you uncle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just don't call me daddy.
We need that. Miss Ava and Miss Oprah, they do not like the term auntie. And so I don't want anyone coming up on there calling you what you are not comfortable being called.
Cool.
All right.
You know, in India, everybody is auntie and uncle.
Yes.
Everybody is auntie and uncle.
It's a sign of respect for anyone that's a day older than you in the Caribbean.
Yes.
Like, everybody's an auntie.
Yeah.
All right, so here we are. So we're here to talk about partly where art occurs, where art can occur, organization, WACO Theater. And so this has been an individual vision that each of you have had for years before even meeting each other. And so now it's something that as of 2017 is now in fruition and building. So I would love to hear what your individual stories were for the vision that you had for this community center and how that has come together now that you guys have joined forces.
Okay. Guess we could start with me. Well, first of all, I met Richard 39 years ago. His sister was actually my best friend. So we met I was pregnant with Beyonce, as a matter of fact, when I met him. And I was married at the time, and I think you were married.
I was married.
I think you were. Anyway, we always had a lot of admiration for each other, and we always talked about our dreams about changing the world. And he was an actor, like a hot actor at the time, and very handsome, I might say, but I was married. So
I'm glad you didn't say at the time with that.
All right.
He was handsome at the time.
No, you still are handsome. So anyway, time went on, and we always kept in touch. He actually came down and did one of my benefits for the Covenant House. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And he was on Dynasty at the time, and he came down and emceed it. And through the years, we were all friends, my ex-husband as well, and we stayed in touch. And then we lost touch for about, maybe 10, 12 years as the girls' careers took off and I was traveling with them. And after I got divorced, actually, it was like maybe a year and a half after I got divorced, and my ex-husband was getting married. And so so I was sad, not because I wanted him back, but, and I say that because, you get sad because you're like, God, he got married and I'm still just running around traveling with my kids. Mm-hmm. So anyway, my best friend called him and asked him, did he know any men he could introduce me to? And it was funny. So we reconnected, and of course we were now free. So we got together, and we realized that we had the same dream because I was in the process. I moved back to Texas, and I was in the process, had put down a down payment on a place to have a community center because when my kids were little, they went to 2 community centers in Houston. And they were the best places, but they were like in underserved areas. And that's where they cut their teeth on competing because that was where the real great dancers and singers and you could buy black books, and one was called the Shrine of the Black Madonna, and the other one was the Shape Center. And you probably heard Solange talk about those places. So anyway, I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to open a community center and just have people come and do art, and they can have books, and we can have, African-American authors come in and read. And so that's what I was in the process of doing. And in talking to him, he basically had the same dream. He had an acting school, and I'll let him talk about that. But we had this in-kind dream, so we hooked up and did it together.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
just told the whole story.
You did. Yeah, 38, 39 years ago when I met her, she's my sister's best friend, and she said, I thought she was the prettiest woman I'd ever seen in my life. You know, she was quiet and shy and all of that, but that was all fake.
The setup.
She's really a gangster. We've almost been to jail, our friends and I, several times because of her trying to, you know those purses that have, like, you put your finger through it and it's like what do you call those? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they, you know, listen, that's a whole thing there. But, so yeah, I've been in the business since 1969, so this is technically my 7th decade of working in the business. So 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 1000s, 2010, now is 2020. And so, and I did find after getting out of Vietnam, I did find my purpose. And the day that I recognized that I was put on this earth, I had a revelation when I was doing this musical called Golden Boy, that I was put on this earth to do this, that revelation has never changed from that moment to this moment, that this is what I am here to do, and I'm clear about that. So that in terms of giving, you can't keep it unless you give it away. So I became a teacher, and I started to pass that on. And so I taught famous people, and then I had a wonderful career. So these 2 tracks that I learned. So it was about creating this space where art can occur, where art can occur, WACO. And when we talked about that, she said, you know, I really like that name. I'm gonna jack that name. And I said, that's fine. So our separate goals and our separate paths and intention of creating a place where people can do something artistically was a common, separate but common thing. And so it was just natural for us to co-create this place. You know, it's been a wonderful experience, because when we look at the kids that we touch, and when we look at the people that we touch through the art that we create in the space itself, that we know that there's a reason for this, and that we are blessed to be chosen by God to be the conduit for this kind of life-expanding experience for kids. I see all this Ivy Park in the room.
I know.
Go ahead, Beyonce.
We got to support. We knew you were coming. I think what you've shared is such a testimony, right? We all have visions and just ideas in our heart and in our spirit of things that we want to accomplish. And, you know, oftentimes we're like, when? It's not happening yet. But look at this, a vision that each of them had, spanning over 7 decades,
right.
That now in the divine time is when it came to fruition, and now it can flourish in such a healthy space with such support. So I think that's such an amazing thing to call out. Now, this is all about art, right? And so art is intertwined in both your lives and the lives of your children in terms of the success that they've had in both music and acting. You guys have both come from humble beginnings, but then you were allowed to give your children the exposure and the nurturing that they needed to be in the arts and what they were interested in. But when it comes, again, to the lower economic homes, art is a luxury, right? They're just focused on the basics, right? So how is WACO bridging that gap in the Los Angeles area, and what impact have you seen it have on the students that have come through your doors?
Well, absolutely, it's been impactful. We have several kids that didn't even know that they were interested in art. Like, they could draw a little bit, but they have just flourished in terms of being artists, painters, performing arts, dance. We encourage it all. And I know the role that it played in my kids' life to be able to do that, even if they didn't wind up as entertainers. Just the exposure to the arts and seeing images, because I'm an art collector, African-American art collector, And so my kids grew up seeing positive images of Black people that look like them. And so they didn't have this one standard of, what they saw on TV as beauty. They had a wide range of complexions and hair textures. And I have no doubt that affected their confidence and their self-esteem. And that happens every day with these kids. We have kids who, like you said, it's an underserved community, so they've never even thought about art. But we go to museums and we see beautiful art and they get inspired by it. We study artists, and it's just been overwhelming, the change and the confidence that they have because of being exposed to the arts. Because everybody needs that one thing that they feel good about. And it can be singing, it can be dancing, it can be painting, it could be, I believe that it's the center of finding out who you are. Yeah.
There's a play, I think Amir Baraka wrote a play, and I don't remember the name of this particular play. I just remember a scene in the play where it takes place in Harlem, and it's like up on 148th Street in Harlem. And the rooftop of this tenement building is where these two kids go who live in the building, and this is where they find their space and freedom to express themselves. And the girl is so unhappy with her life, and so unhappy with the circumstances of her world that she doesn't see anything that is worthy of living in this life. And she says, I hate my life, and I hate my world, and I hate all the things in it. She says, one day I'm gonna run so far away from here, no one will ever find me. I'm gonna run all the way to 136th Street. That speaks volumes in terms of the limit of people's imagination. Yeah. And so therefore, most kids growing up can only see to the edge of their zip code. That's their experience. So our purpose is to expand that limit and to allow people to be able to see the world in a greater sense. They talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. One of the most important elements of STEM is STEAM, putting the art in that. Yes. Because it is through art that expands people's imagination, that is allowed, that they can look beyond 2 + 2 is 4. Yes, that's true, but there's more. And so therefore, in terms of encouraging someone to be introspective and to honor their fantasy, honor their thoughts, and honor the things that they imagine, that it's important. So that when we take our kids to Africa and they see that experience and they experience other kids, and we take them to see Alvin Ailey, and we take them to Cedars-Sinai, which is a hospital where they can see brain surgery, that Dr. Black, this Black man who is just an amazing scientist and surgeon, brain surgeon, and they can do surgery on the brain.
Simulated surgery.
Right. And
it's an important word there.
Yeah. And that we put a camera in their hands and they can make movies. And one Emily talks about, she's Hispanic, and she talks about the fact that her experience and her fear, the reason why she wants to be president of the United States is so that she can change the condition of people's lives, like people shouldn't have to live in poverty, and fear the fact that their parents are going to be taken out of this country. So she tells a story about her driving down the street one night, and her father was driving and her mother was in the other seat, and they were coming upon a checkpoint where they were checking your license and stuff. And he was so afraid because he wasn't documented, and they switched seats, and the mother got in the car, but they saw them and they took them out of the car, and her fear was that her father was going to be taken away. And So her being able to tell that story and had that be her motivation, you know, and all the other kids' stories, they all have their own stories, that it's important for us to be able to help them be able to see that there's more than what's the limit of their neighborhood, you know, that they can be all these things. And they're now being able to see that so much is possible.
And I love that you guys are intentionally doing this. So through Tina's Angels, Richard's Warriors, there's a mentorship program for ages 12 to about 17 high school students.
Well, it starts at 12, but it goes through college.
And giving exposure. I mean, this is the year of the return. So you took them to Ghana.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, we got
Talk about FOMO for those of us in the room that haven't made it yet, right? But what an experience that likely the first time they get on a plane, likely the first time that they leave the country is to Ghana, and what experience and life-changing that is for them. So I want to quickly play.
Let me just add one quick thing because it's important, right? Essence sponsored this trip. And so Essence chartered a plane. It was 100
Private
seats,
plane.
a private plane, 100 first-class seats.
Yeah.
So these kids were able to experience a first-class experience going to Africa. That is
Yes.
huge. And thank you, La Traviette, and thank you, Richelieu, and thank you for the beautiful people at Shea Moisture and Essence, because that was amazing.
Right. It's a community and it takes a tribe to do those things,
Yeah.
right? And so let's play a video of the film camp that you also hold for the students that you have at your camp.
Yes.
This week, I'm most excited to work with everybody. It's gonna be really fun.
I think this camp will help me just like open up more.
I just want to learn like what it takes to be like an actor.
Action!
Hi,
How are you?
I'm fine.
Okay. Hi! How are you? I'm fine.
Okay.
Good. Part of this week is just to introduce to you guys like different forms of art, different forms of acting, and what's available to you.
It's about deciding that you are a professional and then making the decision to be a professional. How many of you would like to decide to be a professional?
When you get to make the film, you have to like write stuff down, you have to document. When we were writing stuff down, and it really helped me better my writing, such as writing my dream.
My dream is to either be a filmmaker or entrepreneur.
I want to continue to write about issues that are typically avoided by political leaders.
I'm excited to deliver a message through.
So this is a great taste, thank you. A great taste of what takes place at the film camp. So not only are you physically taking them out of their surroundings, but talk to us about how you're mentally taking them out of their surroundings through this film camp.
Yeah, so this Richard Lawson Studios, I created a teaching modality, it's called a professional development program, where I put a camera in people's hands and I teach them how to become filmmakers, and then we start to make films telling our own personal stories. The interesting thing about film is the fact that the camera doesn't lie. And so that when these kids have a chance to make these films with very specific assignments, they're able to look at themselves. Most of us have been taught as we grew up, other people defined who we were. Teachers, parents, friends, families. They said good, bad, right, wrong. And they defined who we were, and we responded to that. In this film process, these kids create these stories, and then they look at themselves, and they see that they are not what they thought they were, or that they were more than what they thought they were, and that they're able to help shape their own image of themselves, which brings confidence and brings a sense of reality about what they want, where they want to go, and all of that. The other part of it is that we have them write their dream and state their dream. And then we take a look at what it's going to take in order to make that happen. What kind of policies do you have to have in your own life? You know, what kind of contract do you make with yourself? You know, what kind of principles? What goals? You know, what are your affirmations, the things that other people have said that make you stronger? Like, you know, there's so much good in the worst of us, there's so much bad in the best of us that it doesn't behoove any of us to talk about the rest of us. That makes me take a look and say, well, who am I to judge someone else? Let me just be me. So that in this program, it's about them learning about themselves, and they gain strength and they gain confidence and intelligence, and you know, and their ideas are honored and all of that. And so it's a way to embolden and strengthen them to become the people that they see in themselves.
Can you tell the story about the young woman who thought she was?
Yes. So this is a great example of what this program does. So Layla, I believe it was Layla, right? Mm-hmm. Layla, who is this brown-skinned girl who has psoriasis. And so she walks around like this because her hands have it. And she has, you know, like, or microphone. She has like turtlenecks on all the way up because she doesn't want people to see, because she's been bullied about that, right? So she came to the program reluctantly, and she said, you know, at the end of the program, and we asked her, what'd you get out of it? She says, you know, I really didn't want to come because I've always seen myself as ugly. But my mother encouraged me to come, and so I came. And now that I have made these films and I can see myself, I can see that I'm pretty.
She is pretty.
And she's beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's just that, again, all that outside stuff put her in this place, but she's able to see more. And she's gorgeous, and now she's changed her spirit. She doesn't pay any attention to that. And all she needs now is for us to be able to find the right doctor, the right person that could give her the nutritional things that her parents could sustain and that she can take responsibility for, and do whatever it takes in order for her to handle this.
Plus, she's just really articulate and so smart. And now she likes being the center of attention, which is not in a negative way, but she's confident enough to speak out because she was holding all this stuff in and not answering questions or not speaking about things because of the confidence level. So it does a lot for them to see themselves on film. We had kids to write short stories about violence, gang violence, and losing someone that they loved. And that way they were able to articulate and also work through all that pain that they've been holding inside. So it's really magical to see them do these films, these short films, and the subject matter like suicide and bullying and really deep subjects that they just haven't even dealt with.
The first girl that you saw, the very first girl that you saw, Naire, when she first got with us at 12, she was reading on a second grade level. Now she's 14, going on 15 I think now. She now competes in poetry. She's so bright and so
brilliant.
Smart. And so, I mean, like this is like a metamorphosis. Yeah. And it's amazing. Now she's a completely different person, and I helped her with her speech because she had a tied tongue. Mm-hmm. And so I worked with her and gave her some exercises. And for those of you who want to improve your elocution, get a cork, like a wine bottle cork, and put it in your mouth, and then it forces you to talk and use the muscles in your mouth to become stronger. And so that completely changed it. You cannot really tell that. Yeah. That's almost completely gone.
And she is so brilliant with her poetry that sometimes I have to ask her, what happened to you? Because, I mean, how do you know that? You know, just...
Yeah, some of the stuff.
Yeah, it's so deep, but she is like the best poet, and I have no doubt that she'll do something as far as writing, or she's gonna be a superstar one day because of that.
Thank you for sharing those stories. Now, you mentioned the support that you received from Essence, from Richie Lou. And then you also have a tentpole fundraising event, the Wearable Gala, which we've seen the last 2 years. Thank goodness we had Black Panther and Lion King last year, and we had all the looks that were served by the two of you and all the guests that were there. Talk to us about the vision for that event. The 4th annual one is coming up in May of this year. What can we look forward to for that? And beyond that, where are we going with this particular gala?
The gala came about because we had to have a fundraiser. And, you know, you can imagine that we go to 1 million fundraisers, and you go in and you, and you eat this dinner with chicken and, you know, real green beans, and you know they have auctions and things like that. So I just did not want to have the typical gala, and so it is. We talked about it and we decided to bring some. How many of you have been to New Orleans? Okay, almost everyone. It is the party town, so you just party from the time you get there, and it's such a great spirit of people, the food, the music. So we adapted some of the traditions from Louisiana. We have a second line where we dance to our seats. We have a Zydeco band, and we just everything. I mean, we have contortionists. We have people coming down from the ceiling, aerialists. We have just everything just thrown into this so that you just have this magnificent experience that night, and you wear wearable art. So the first year was Wearable Art, and then the second year Black Panther came out. So we did that in honor of that. And then this past year, it just so happens that Beyonce was attached to The Lion King. So Disney was one of our sponsors. And it was amazing, and it's just gotten better and better and more fun. You know, we've gotten to our dream venue, which is like a 36,000 square foot place. And it started with this small vision to have this, and we had it at the African American Museum, but we combined art, music, food stations. This was our first year having a sit-down dinner, but now we have dessert stations. So what we do is we link up to the Fashion Institute and have those kids come in. And it's kind of like, if you've been in New Orleans, you know that they have the big Mardi Gras parade and they have floats. Our dessert stations or our food stations are art. So we give them a budget of like $300, and they have to be creative and create this beautiful food station. So we give back in that way as well, because we include the up and coming artists. We have one of the best galleries, I think, of any fundraiser that I've been to, because we have all the people that are on the verge of blowing up in terms of art. And it's amazing, and we involve the kids, so they're a very big part of it. And we've just been really blessed to be able to have people from the very first year. We're supposed to have, what, 250?
Yeah, we wanted 250.
And we got like 400, and we had to turn people away. And then the next year it grew, and last year we were up to 750 people, and we wound up having 850 people. So I had to go home and get our own silverware and other tables. So it's just been a real blessing, and what comes out of it is just a real sense of pride, and it's just an amazing event. So check it out if any of you want to come down and come.
Going forward, you know, the trip to Africa was a revelation on so many levels. So going forward, what we really recognize is that the things that we create are certainly Afrocentric. Black Panther, you know, the Lion King, a lot of the dress is Afrocentric in nature and like that. But after going to Ghana and really seeing the beauty of the fashion, the food, the art, the music, the dance, and all that, it's like going forward, you know, next year our theme we'll look at the Ashanti tribe, and we will look at African nations and start to, you know, sort of mine the beauty of all that comes with that. And there is no end to the different nations and the different styles of fashion and concepts. Now, marrying that with our theater and where we create art on the ground is that our season over the next few years is the evolution of. So we will look at the evolution of music, of dance, the evolution of the Ashanti tribe, which I found out that I am historically a member of genetically because I'm 20% Ghanaian. And that was an experience to be in those dungeons and to realize that I'm standing on my own DNA. But the evolution of music from Africa and how it went to Brazil and to Jamaica and to Cuba and America, and we see this sort of diasporic journey of all of those elements and how it affects this country and African Americans today. So coming from the year of the return, it's like we got to bring it back artistically to this country so that hopefully people in this country, and particularly African Americans, can learn to appreciate that lineage.
Yes.
I'm telling you, every one of you should take a DNA test just so you understand where you come from. If people took DNA tests, there'd be a lot of less conflict in the world because people would be realizing, well, you know, I'm part this and I'm part that. Like I found out that I'm like 0.3% Ashkenazi Jew. Who would have thunk it? You know what I mean? But so we're trying to make this connection between Africa and America.
And also educate, I have to say, because I was ignorant of it too. As we're having this gala, you know, we have a lot of African artists. And they were like, listen, Africa is a continent, it's not a country, it's a difference. Don't mix Ashanti with, you know, Nigeria. Learn about it. And so that's what we're hoping that it will do. It will create this thirst for people to figure out the different regions and to have you know, a better understanding of the differences in the cultures.
Yeah. Now, the rumor is that it's been called, so I've heard, Met West, like Met Ball West. That's what it's kind of like, going in that stratosphere, if you will. What'd you say, man?
Except it's better.
Except it's better, yeah.
It's fun, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Love that, love that. So if you have questions, you can line up, and I'm going to ask one more, and then I'll turn it over to you all. So we have two mics there for you to get to. So last question, how can we as Googlers, as the community, support WACO in their efforts? I know we're based in New York, but we're live streaming to all of our Google offices. It will be on YouTube for the public to see. So what can we do to support you all?
You know, there's a number of ways that, you know, that Google and the public can support us. Google is a technology company that has so many aspects, and Google is in our lives. Google is in my life so intrinsically that it's like amazing. But in terms of, you know, it's like I'm old school philosophy in terms of the education, but I'm 21st century in terms of imparting that information. So technology is really an important part of it. So in terms of helping us on the technological side to be able to teach these kids and provide them with an advanced sense of learning. In terms of products, in terms of the theater, in terms of making the theater function, in terms of expanding that beyond, in terms of people supporting our economic efforts. It ain't cheap to do any of this stuff. I'm telling you, it is like an amazing thing when you try to, we have 90 kids in our program. We have 30 in the school now, but they graduate, but these kids stay with us. And so therefore, in terms of transporting kids, in terms of getting information, in terms of supporting their scholarship efforts, you know, so just cash money is one thing that is, go on the website and say, I donate. Information, donate that in kind.
Or your time. Where you're in LA, we welcome everybody to come by and share their experience with the kids. And, they need to see all types of role models. And they're very excited about Google.
Right. One of the things that we want to do looking forward is that we're at one KIPP school, right? There's 500 KIPP schools in the country. There's 17 in Southern California. We want to be able to create this program in other schools, so we want to scale up to that. Money. We're talking about virtual reality, right? The reality of a kid being able to go into a world and that world be able to take him way beyond his zip code and to see what's possible.
What about your college tour that you want to do?
Yeah, I was telling her about, the whole aspect of going on a college tour in terms
But in
of
virtual reality, because a lot of kids can't afford to travel and go to school.
Yeah.
If we have anyone from the Daydream team or know somebody that knows someone,
Yes.
we'd love to get them in touch.
Yeah. So come to the website, take a look, and on the website we can make sure that there are links to specific supporting one of our kids through a year. There are all kind of creative ways to support. There's even in terms of instead of dollars that you give us, that you donate, 1% or some percentage of an investment, where you give us stocks that have a value that we can hold or to turn in that helps us. So the website is at wacotheatercenter.com. You can find us at wacotheatercenter.com.
And then Facebook and IG at WACO Theater, right?
At WACO Theater. Is it just WACO Theater or WACO Theater Center?
Yes.
At WACO Theater, IG, Facebook.
All right, well, we have a question from the audience. You can say your name and then your question.
Hello, thank you all so much for being here. My name is Kristen, and my question for you all is, I feel like when we're very young, it's easier to express ourselves a little bit more creatively, and it feels like almost like as we get older, we kind of tend to dim down or like hide a lot of those parts of us. How do you all, or what advice do you all have as people kind of grow up and, we want to tend to dim that? How do you kind of tap into that creativity as you continue to get older?
One of the things that I think is one of the most powerful parts of the school that I created, which is Richard Lawson Studios, you can search that too, but is that we created a community. And that community is of like-minded people who are trying to create the same things differently. You have a different journey than I have, but I support your efforts and you support my efforts. So you want to be around people who think like you, who have the same things. That's one of the things that's very interesting, is that when people start to get lost and then they find support groups. That's what makes Alcoholics Anonymous so powerful, is that it's a support group. And there are support groups of everything, people with cancer, support groups, because you're around people who are helping you think positive, helping you think at the possibilities. That's not being weighed down in pessimism and negativity, you understand? So your group, your relationship map is everything in terms of your survival as a person, as an artist.
And I think it's also really important that everyone searches their soul and you'll figure out what was that stop. Because typically there's somebody who told you, you can't sing, or you can't dance, or you can't. And then you get shut down, and you don't want to bring that. It happened to me. As a kid, I was in singing groups, and and in my little town, I was always told, girl, you better get a job because, there's no hope. And so I gave that up, and I stopped singing. I stopped trying to pursue that. That's what I wanted as a career. So think about that person who told you this, or that you can't, or people that told me, with the girls, why are y'all spending all y'all money on these girls? Because ain't nothing gonna happen with that, and look at us now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's take a question on this side.
Thank you. That was a great question.
I thoroughly enjoy the conversation and appreciate what you guys are doing from the community. I myself was raised by a single mother, and she made it a priority for me to get exposure to the arts and to sports, and I can't even begin to tell you what that's done from a journey to self-awareness, as well as creative problem solving that I utilize every day here at Google. My question was more around your personal first. When did you first become inspired by art? I wanted to hear that you talked about it a little bit just now, but I wanted to hear your personal story with art.
Well, with art, I think my mom took in sewing, and she made jackets for women who were well-to-do. She'd do these hand-beaded jackets. And I would always go with her to deliver the jackets. And I would go into homes that had beautiful art. And I was like, oh my God. I was just very attracted to it. And even though we couldn't afford, we had Black Jesus, that was our, really. I just always wanted to have art, and always was interested in the decor of the fine things that I saw, and I wanted a piece of that. So I remember my first apartment, I bought a painting for $500. I kept it in layaway for 6 months. But it wasn't anything fantastic, but it just made my whole room. And it gave me this feeling, this emotion that, God, that just made me feel really good. And so I was just inspired by it. And I started collecting early on, because people think they have to have a lot of money to start collecting. You don't. $500 for me at the time was a lot, but it just made my whole room. And so I just encourage people to start collecting, especially young people. I can't tell you how many young people I've got collecting art, because they'll go spend $3,000 on a bag, and I'm like, in a year, you're not going to want to see that bag. But art is forever. And no matter what price range it is, it helps you to come alive. And once you collect that first piece, you will become a fanatic about it. I don't know anybody who hasn't been inspired and to just get bigger and better. And it goes up in value. It's a great investment. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Uncle Richard. Hi, Auntie Tina. First, I want to say thanks for giving birth to Beyonce. That was pretty awesome of you. And Solange. So what you said today really touched me. This kind of goes back to how I grew up. I was, as the last speaker said, exposed to art at a very, very early age, got to college, and really fell in art when I took an art history course. So really wish that I got even more exposure being younger. We have a great circle of women here. We go by State of the Black Women, right, Steph?
Yes.
And we are a huge support system, and we had a great summit last year, and we talked about growth and giving back, and I think that really held strong to me. And something that I want to work on this year is finding a way to give back and being a part of this organization and things that you're working on. And my question is, what is your growth trajectory? I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Do you see yourself opening up a studio in Brooklyn, New York, anywhere? We'd love to hear about that.
Well, for me, that would be a dream come true, because the program, this program started because it was something that I always dreamed of doing. And I said, if it's anything I'm good at, it's raising girls, influencing girls, because I always had a house full of girls. And I'm getting emotional thinking about it. And when I was 14, my brother's girlfriend came into my life, and she had an asymmetrical haircut and a red Miata, and I just thought she was the baddest thing walking. And she took me to see Alvin Ailey, and I was 14. It just changed my life completely, and just blew me away. So I was like, when I got ready to do the program, I went out and bought 25 tickets to Alvin Ailey. I didn't even have the girls. And then the girls came because, it was my step out on faith or whatever. But I know I'm rambling on. But if we could have these programs all across the country, it doesn't have to be this program, just any program. But what I encourage every person to do is just start your own, because it doesn't have to be, I didn't know where I was going to get the girls. I just, stepped out there. And everybody has a church, a community center, or Boys and Girls Club. Kids they really need somebody to believe in them other than their parents. Because of course, think about it. You guys are young, so you don't listen to your parents through your teenage years. They're the least cool people you know. And so just to go into a kid's life and tell them that they're beautiful and that they could do anything, you can do that through all the organizations that exist. You can start your own. I encourage you to spend a little time with a teenager. They need help so bad. They're just thirsty for somebody to say, yes, you can do it. Some kids have never, we interview the kids, Richard and I have a questionnaire. And one of the things is, who's the person that you believe? Who's the person that you trust that wants your best interest? Who's the person that's a hater in your life? And you'll be surprised that every kid, my aunt so-and-so, my cousin, somebody in their lives have, given them a negative image of themselves. And all it takes is one person to tell them different. So if you want to be involved with WACO, that's wonderful, because we always welcome mentors for the kids, examples to them. But you can also do it right in your community.
I just want to add to that in terms of, the importance of being of service. I think it's one of the highest forms of a blessing, I suppose, that there is. I know that element is really kind of the foundation of every program that is a help program. I ran the drug program, or was one of the ones who ran the drug program for the NBA. We started the drug program in the NBA in 1983, and I was a part of it until 1994. And what I know that in terms of recovery, that being of service is the thing that anchors you to sobriety. Because the truth is that you can't keep it unless you give it away. Mm-hmm. Every great person who starts to do well in life understands that they need to give back. They need a hand up, not a handout. And so therefore, you can do that on your own, or you can attach to something that is in place. But it's important that we pass on the knowledge.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great question.
Hi, my name is Caitlin. I'm a brand.
Did you say Caitlin?
Yes.
Caitlin, hi.
Caitlin. And I'm like a new grad software engineer here, so that might be part of like why I want to ask what I'm going to ask. So you mentioned a lot of times like you have a dream or a vision and then someone tells you that you can't do it. Mm-hmm. And then you veer off and do whatever other thing you're going to do with your life. And you guys are both people who managed to have so many different career paths and different things that you've done in your life. How did you decide when it was time to make that move to do something new, and how did you find the courage to do that?
Well, for me, I didn't go to college. I took a few classes, but I knew that I wanted to do something in beauty. And so I moved to California when I was just barely 19 years old. And I got this job as a makeup artist. And it was nothing but divine intervention. I got trained by a Japanese company called Shiseido. Mm-hmm. And in Los Angeles, it was an all-Asian company, but for me to go, they hired me to go into Crenshaw and Fox Hills, which were the black stores, because they wouldn't allow the women wore geisha clothes, and they wouldn't allow them to do their makeup. And I did that for maybe a year, and I wound up having to move back to Texas. And so I'm like, I'm going to be a makeup artist, but life didn't work out that way. So I wound up going to beauty school, and then I had a hair salon. And then when the girls took off, I became a stylist because I always loved fashion, and I sewed and I made the clothes because of money restrictions. And then I became a stylist. So when the opportunity comes, because I've had many, many jobs, it's like when the opportunity comes for me, it was just, I'm going to step out on faith and I'm going to do this, and I don't put a lot into being fearful that I can change because I just feel like it's going to work out. And if that doesn't work out, I can do something else. But I don't get stuck on the fear.
Yes.
I'm a proponent to, it's like I have in terms of the classes that I teach, one of the first things that you do is state your dream. Let's take your dream. What do you see for yourself? And write that down. I mean, just a flow of consciousness without thinking about any other person in the world. I don't care if you have kids, your wife, your husband, your parents, where you came from, none of that. But it's like, what is your dream? Write that down. And then from that, you can extrapolate your goals, your purposes, your vision, your principles, all of those things. And set out following that. Because I know even as actors, if they don't have a dream, then I'm teaching a desire as opposed to something that they can't live without. If you are doing the thing that you love and that you can't live without, you'll find what it is you need to do. You're not, I did a seminar, I do seminars, and I did a seminar for C-suite women. People who were in the chairman's office, CEO, COO, these were all those women. So it's like, what can I teach women who are already successful? And it was a real challenge for me to think about what I have to give to them. But you know what? Let me just go and do what I do. And so I started to teach, I started this seminar. Well, what I discovered is that a lot of these women got jobs and became very good at these jobs, and they worked their way all the way up to the chairman's office. But it wasn't the thing that they loved, it's what they learned to do. But when we started looking at what they loved, it was something different. So it was like they got empowered to rethink their journey and start to follow the thing that they love. Because what I know is if you're doing the thing you love, you will live forever. And you will be always youthful in the process, because you will get up every day invigorated by this purpose, as opposed to just doing a job. That's important. I just have a question. Is everyone in here an employee here?
Yes.
Wow, so this is all an internal group. This is cool, very cool. Very cool. Anyway, I hope I answered your question.
I'm so grateful to see what you're doing for WACO. I'm grateful to see that you're improving students' lives, not just in the art industry, but you're teaching them self-discipline, self-growth. And it's amazing to see. It's inspiring. I love it. So my question is, what are 3 secrets or strategies to how you got to where you are now? 3 secrets to your success. Is it your support group? Is it self-discipline? Like, did you do something every day to get you to where you are? Did you take risk? So that's my question.
Yeah. For me, yes, absolutely. I moved lock, stock, and barrel with really no money to different places because I wanted to travel. So I think I've always taken risk. And even, you know, with the clothing line, you know, it came about because people always ask, when are you going to do a clothing line? And I was on a red carpet one day, and Yvette, our publicist, is forever and a really close friend. We were on the red carpet, and I said, oh, it's coming. It's coming. And I had no idea. And they said, well, what's the name of it? And I was like, House of Darion, because that was my mother's maiden name. Yeah. And it was just so funny because we laughed because it was not real. And then people started writing all this stuff, and I was like, I got to get off my butt and do a clothing line. So, you know, it's like I am a very spiritual person, and I know that God has done my path, guided me. And so I'm kind of fearless when it comes to doing something new. I just go out there, and I know that it's going to be taken care of, and I just put my heart and soul into it, and it's just worked out, you know, for me. And I think, you know, Richard is a great planner, and I'm not that great of a planner, but somehow it just, you know, the universe puts it together, and I just see the vision, and I go forward, like blindly, like I'm just gonna do this, and it's worked out for me. Wow. It's worked out for me.
You said three things.
Main three.
The first thing that I know is that you have to love yourself.
Sunday service.
And what's not
Can I get an amen?
And what's not to love?
Yeah. So you have to love yourself. You have to be able to say, if I saw that person, Richard Lawson, I think, I like that guy. I want to know more about him. That's number one. Number two is that be generous in giving that to others. Giving it away is important. And three, I think we all need mentors. Mm-hmm. And whether they are directly in your life and someone that you can talk to, or whether there's someone that you see out there in the universe where you say, I want to be like that. Not like I want to be him, but I want to be like that. Yeah. You know, the whole thing, be like Mike. You know, that was transformative in the sense that people tried to embody some aspect of something that they saw. So who are the people that move the needle in your spirit, in your imagination, in your fearlessness? Yeah. And I agree with her. We are both two fearless people. Where, you know, in different ways, you know, in very different ways, you know, but to be fearless in your search of what is true for you.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is all the time we have. Thank you so much, Ms. Tina and Mr. Richard, for sharing your story, your wisdom. I know people were taking notes, and you're going to email it to me after this, so I have it. Because it was really incredible.
Can we interrupt you for one last
Yes.
So there is something that Mr. Richard says all the time that's a takeaway for me all the time, and I am a little surprised he didn't get a chance to say it, and you know what I'm talking about. It has to do with dreams. Please
okay.
by telling them that.
Dreams don't have expiration dates.
That's right.
So in terms of the young lady that was just standing there, you were looking at, you know, like change or what's the right decisions. And I was talking about what is your dream. Follow that because it doesn't have an expiration date.
That's right.
Awesome. And on that, thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.